So hey friends, this is Michael Golzmane. Thanks for watching this video. I've realized by doing a lot of individual check-ins for people who are requesting clearings from me that there are some very common issues that are coming up in many different people, and I thought it would be easier for me to explain it in the course of a particular video than to take the time to explain it to each person individually. So I put out a request on my website where people can contact me and have me do a little check-in with them, with their own higher self and with their spiritual essence, to be able to look at what are the issues that are going on with them in the subconscious, in their karma, in their past lives, in their present life, in their conscious mind, that are contributing to their current experiences of life. So you might have heard it said before that we don't experience life as it is, we experience life as we are. And this, after doing several thousand of these individual clearings, this has become much more in the forefront of my own consciousness, much more strongly in my own belief that we see life and we experience life through our own lens, through the lens of our own consciousness. That may sound a little abstract to hear that initially, but I want to explain to you what I mean. So, in my experience, in my perception, life could be looked at as a synonym for God, or for source, or for being, or for consciousness itself. These things I don't think are different. People use the term God, and traditionally that's meant, a person in the sky somewhere, but I think many people realize that God doesn't just mean a person. God may not mean a person at all, but God may mean an all-encompassing, all-embracing presence. People call it today sometimes source or source energy, to denote that it is where all of us come from, this field of all possibilities. As we tap into that field more and more, we are able to reflect and reveal in our own being more and more of those innate qualities of abundance, of health, of joy, of peace, of prosperity, of relationship harmony, of well-being within our own self, because these are the qualities that source energy, God, spirit, ultimate consciousness, these are the qualities that this beingness exemplifies and is the source of. So we are emanations of that. We are not in ego sense, saying, oh, I'm God, you're God, but we are emanations and we are one with that divine presence. It really, when you start to meditate on this a bit, it can't be any other way. You start to realize that this is so obvious and so innate in our own, how our consciousness is embedded within us, that it's instantly revealed. In a moment of awakening, you can have this in meditation. So what's the source of our problems? Why do we have so many challenges? I said before, people contact me from all over the world telling me very similar things. They may have limits that they believe into their mental, emotional, physical well-being. They don't feel well. They can't perceive life through an optimistic means. Their body might not feel well. They might have what's called a dis-ease, or several of those that have been chronic or ongoing for a period of time. They may see that the blocks and limitations that are happening for them is in what's called their external world, or their world of manifestation, where they're having trouble manifesting something financial, something career-wise, or having trouble manifesting some sort of relationship. They might have a relationship, family member, friend, parent, child, lover, spouse, but they may not be able to manifest ease and joy and love in that relationship as easily as they'd like to. So the goals that people approach me with are often understandably internal, or they might say, I don't understand why I can't seem to manifest this external thing that I'm looking for in my life experience. Now, a fundamental spiritual principle says that our internal and our external worlds always mirror each other. So there really is no difference between internal and external manifestation from a spiritual perspective, because they're always the same. One thing may seem to be external to you, and one thing may seem to be internal to you, but from a spiritual realization perspective, these things are reflections and mirrors of each other. Internal and external always manifest. So I realized after doing a number of these check-ins with people over the course of years that there really is only one problem. So I just like you to take a deep breath. I'm talking a lot here. Just take a deep breath. There really is only one actual problem. It manifests in different ways. So this problem is a lack of coherent consciousness It's a consciousness problem. It's a lack of our ability to know ourselves as one with Source. That's another way of phrasing it. It could be a problem of internal blocks and limitations in our perception. You might say it's in our conscious mind or subconscious mind, or you could say it's in our karma. There's different ways of these blocks manifesting. The only problem is really we don't know ourselves as our true identity. Many spiritual teachers have talked about this. We don't know our rapport and our ease of relationship with Source consciousness. There's something in the way. Source is who we are. We emanate from Source. We are a part of that. And yet at the same time, it is possible for us to obscure and obstruct our perception and our realization of that Source energy. How can we do that? So that's a very interesting question. How can we obstruct our knowledge and our connection? Not so much even obscuring our connection, because it's always there. We're always connected. We can obscure, though, our realization of that connection, obscure our perception of it, and therefore that lack of consciousness in our own personal mind manifests as lack in our experience, whether it's our internal state of feeling or whether it's an external manifestation. Whether there is no difference really between internal and external. So how can that happen? So this is the idea that we talk about in the clearing work that I love to facilitate with people. We talk about the idea of karma, or we talk about the idea of soul programs, another way of describing it. What is that? So we're all having, with our minds, we're all having consciousness, we're all having thinking, thoughts, perceptions about life happening through our consciousness at all times. Sometimes if we're in meditation, we're able to slow that pace down, or sometimes we're able even to stop that pace of thinking for a period of time. But the mind is not a bad thing by any means. We can use it very creatively. However, oftentimes the mind is running on autopilot. And it begins to sort of go with a lot of the past perceptions and judgments we've had, or it begins to take on stuff from the collective, process it through our mind, and because our mind is highly creative, we begin to feel and perceive and manifest in accordance with our thinking. That's where this idea that your thoughts become reality comes from. So what happens is when these thoughts and perceptions come through our being, if they just come into our awareness and then kind of go, kind of like an ocean wave might, there's not really any problem created there. It's not really any issue. That will happen all the time. It might be even an emotion of anger. It might be an emotion of discord of some kind, or even hatred coming into our being. We become aware of it. If we can let that go easily, then no karma is created as a result of that. However, what happens more often than not for many of us is that we have this perception of reality. Or this perception of our experience of reality. It could be identified as anger, or it could be identified as sadness, or some sort of pain, some sort of betrayal in a relationship. And we mull it over. We lock into it. We hold on to it. We push it down. We have to try to get through our day after having this perception. And so we feel like, I don't have time to deal with this. I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to forgive it. I don't know how to let it go. This person, I feel very victimized. And so we kind of just let it stew a little bit. Over the course of a few days or a few weeks, we might feel like, oh, well, time heals everything. This isn't feeling the brunt of this emotional pain anymore. So maybe, it's fine. We might not even give it a second thought. But it's really not fine in most cases. We haven't really cleared the issue. What we've done is what psychologists call we've repressed it, or we've suppressed it. We've pushed it down into the subconscious, where the brunt of it isn't still there anymore. But the program, what we call the programming of consciousness, is now at a deeper level of our being. And this is where we create karma. This is where we create what's called soul programming. It's literally programming the soul. Okay, you have a million programs of anger here based in this particular situation. So you're going to create based on this particular filter or lens of anger from now on until you release that. Does that make sense? What we're doing is we have this wonderful relationship with ultimate source reality. It is us. We are a part of it. It's ideally the relationship is clear and free and flowing, but we have the ability to, through our thoughts, especially our thoughts that have a lot of emotional energy behind them that we hold on to, our beliefs, our perceptions, life isn't fair, God's punishing me, that person did that, they weren't supposed to do that. These are all beliefs and perceptions that if we hold on to them, they create a barrier. They create, I use the analogy oftentimes of a slide projector projecting a clear light onto a screen. And as long as the light doesn't have any obstruction in it, the light from the source, from the light bulb, is able to project onto the screen easily. But as soon as you start covering it over with slides, maybe the slides are dirty, maybe they have all kinds of images, and you put a bunch of them, stack them on top of each other, pretty soon you put 100 slides that all have different kinds of images, distorted images on them, all in a row. You might see nothing on the wall of the screen, so to speak, of consciousness, of the screen of manifestation, after having that many slides in the way. It's just like this with life. We have the ability, through our limiting beliefs and perceptions, and through the accumulation of limiting beliefs in our subconscious mind, also known as our karma, or you could say our past lives if you believe in that, we have the ability to limit the ability of source consciousness to manifest freely and easily in our own lives. That is the only problem we have. The only problem we have is how are we, or why are we limiting source consciousness, and what do we do about that? None of us would consciously want to do that if we knew we had another option, and yet we often don't know. What do I do with this amount of accumulation of energy in my own being? We're often not aware of it because that's the nature of it being subconscious. If something happened to you 10 years ago and it still hasn't been resolved in your psyche, in your soul, it's still there. It's still there, creating a relative barrier between you and your ability to manifest freely. This is one reason why affirmations often don't work, especially initially for people, because they begin to use their conscious mind saying, I have $1 million, I have $1 million, I have $1 million. And of course, 99% of their consciousness below the surface might be filled with restriction, unfinished business, unfinished, old anger. I'm still holding on to this thing from my parents. I'm still holding on to this thing from 100 lifetimes ago. All of this stuff, which contradicts the present moment intention. So in my work, I work with helping to clear the contradiction. Through the power of grace, through the power of spirit, we can actually go into your soul record and be able to clear. You don't have to necessarily recall or go through consciously all of this stuff like you might in traditional psychotherapy. That's a slow process. It's a good process sometimes, but it's also a slow process of having to go through therapy and having to reveal things one at a time and figure them out. And plus, therapy does not really generally deal with things that are beyond the level of this particular lifetime. You can go into past life regression, but then you're also going in one lifetime at a time generally. It's a slow process, and we've all lived thousands of lifetimes. So we want to have a means that we can go in quickly, work with the power of spirit, work with the power to help to release the limiting imprints that are still stuck in the psyche, and instantaneously begin to feel an equivalent amount of freedom. The more you let go, this phrase, letting go and letting God, the more you let go of anything you've been holding on to, the more spirit, the power of spirit just rushes in to fill that gap. And your life begins to manifest more positively in an equivalent ratio. You've been holding on a certain portion. As you let go of that, you'll begin to feel every area of your life begin to accelerate in its positive manifestation as a result of letting that go, especially when you then begin to use your conscious mind to begin to engage in spiritual practice like prayer, like meditation, like spiritual reading, like spiritual service. When you begin to flow, then use your mind in a positive way to manifest, you won't have all this contradictory energy below the surface, and you'll be able to manifest with greater ease and joy and lightness. That's the purpose of your soul. That's the purpose of your being. People come to me all the time saying, I don't know my soul's purpose. Well, your purpose is to, first of all, realize your oneness with Source. That's all of our purpose is the same on that level. And then secondly, your purpose is to create freely and joyfully that which makes you and the rest of the world happy. That's it. People think it's some complex formula, but the more you let go and let God, the more you come into that state, stepping into the flow of grace, the more you realize that that's your purpose. That's what you're here to do. So there's only one problem, and ultimately letting go and letting God is really the only solution. So whatever helps to contribute to that for you, is what you want to engage with. So let me just recap again. We are one with our originating consciousness. There can be nothing that God can create out of other than God itself. There's no other substance or spiritual energy in the universe other than God, and so God can't create out of anything else other than its own life, God's own life, and so therefore we are a part of that. Now, we can forget that we're a part of that. In the East, they call that karma. In the West, they call that sin. Again, sin, in my own Christian background, often used as a very judgmental term to denote that, you have violated something and God's punishing you for something. But no, the sin is the punishment. The karma is the punishment. There's no God that has the capacity for judgment out there, for punishment, for condemnation, for sending you to hell, for anything else that we've been programmed with. That God does not exist. But we can limit the ability of ourself to receive that action of grace from the divine through our own, often unconscious, but sometimes conscious, blocking of that energy. And we do that by holding on to stuff, by having a lot of discordant beliefs, thoughts, judgments about life, holding on to them, and then not clearing those. Then we begin over the course, and here's the thing, over the course of 100, 200, 300 lifetimes of doing that, all of a sudden, not really all of a sudden, but all of a sudden, we have a serious illness. All of a sudden, we can't pay our bills. All of a sudden, we feel out of step with every relationship that we're having. All of a sudden, we feel depressed. We feel anxious constantly. These things don't come out of nowhere, and they're also not punishments. I want to assert that for you. They're not punishments, but they also have a huge history as to why they've been building up for you. As we begin to chip away and release that history, instantaneously we come into a greater realization and a greater experience and expression of life is pulsating through me. Love is pulsating through me. I am one with that originating source consciousness. And therefore I create like my source. I create with joy, with ease, with lightness. I have made this journey in my own life, and I want to encourage you to make the journey yourself. There's only one problem. There's only one problem any of us have. It manifests in the problem, the limiting consciousness, manifests in different ways for different ones of us. But there's always a solution if we're willing to do the work. So that's where I'll leave it for today. Friends, thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to have me give you this information of this video again in personalized format, telling you there's only one problem that you're having in life, whatever it may be showing up as, please feel free to click below to go to my website, clearingconnect.com. Though I'm happy to give you some more specific information about the nature of the specific imprints that might be limiting you right now. But just realize everything can be cleared, everything can be healed. It doesn't really matter what the imprints are, because that's all yesterday. That's all last lifetime or 10 years ago or whatever. It's just the important thing is to do the work, clear the stuff out of the way, and then begin to come into a greater state of flow and grace and ease. And you can do it. Thanks, friends, for watching. Peace and blessings to you.